There are different formats of presenting final year projects, and different institutions may have their own unique ways to present final year projects. Here at the Federal University of Technology, Owerri, there is a unique way of presenting final year projects, such that there are sequences and a method of referencing, which is the APA method of referencing, the American Psychological Association's method of referencing. Whether you use the 2017 version or the current version, you are good to go. So how can the final year project be presented? If you look at the final year project, you will see the cover page. The cover page should have the information about the study, and it should also have the supervisor's name and the group that did the work. The format for presenting final year project in photo can be categorized in different sections. There is one section that is called the preliminary pages. The preliminary pages houses the cover page of the research. The cover page is more like a signboard, a signpost to your research. So you're telling people, this is the title of my research. These are my supervisors, and these are members of the group that helped to actualize the work. So that is the cover page for you, and also the year, the month, and year of defense should also appear on the cover page. So the cover page tells whoever that cares to look at your work what you did and who supervised you. Aside the cover page, the preliminary pages may also have the certification page. Okay? After the cover page, you have the certification page. The certification page contains information attesting that the students mentioned or the student mentioned in the cover page did the project, and that page has to be endorsed by the student or students that accomplished the project, the supervisor or supervisors, and also the external examiner. For every project, there is supposed to be an external person who would come to examine you after the internal people may have completed their own assignment of examination. So in that certification page, you have provision for your signature and date, provision for your supervisor's signature and date, provision for the HOD's signature and date, and provision for the external examiner's signature and date. So that constitutes the certification page of your final year project. Then the next page, you have dedication. So it is that page that you can dedicate the work to whom you would want to dedicate the work to. Then the next page is the acknowledgement page. So many people were instrumental to the successful completion of your work. It is in that page that you acknowledge them. The technologists that helped to provide the needed facilities, who guided you to accomplish the work, you should recognize and mention their names. The supervisor who was instrumental every step of the way, from the beginning to the completion of your work, deserves mention in your acknowledgement. All the lecturers that taught you in one way or the other, they helped build you to become who you are today. It is what they were able to teach you that in one way or the other aided in your choice of topic. It could just be as a result of the lecturer's way of handling one course that you picked interest in that particular area that made you to continue with it in this your final year as a project. So the lecturers that taught you deserve mention in your acknowledgement. All the lecturers that taught you, you have to mention them and the ways they helped build you to become the person you are today. So those who contributed directly or indirectly, your sponsors, those people deserve mention because they helped you. So think about people that assisted you to complete the work, financially and otherwise. Mention their names. It is that page that you would need to acknowledge everybody that helped you complete the work. After the acknowledgement, you have the table of contents. And it is the table of contents that you now give us information about what you did, what page to find what, in what page to find what figure, and in what page to find what table. So in some arrangements, abstract usually comes before the table of contents or the other way around. So you have to inquire every step of the way to know which one comes first. After the table of content, you also have another page you reserve for list of tables or list of figures. So the first one may be list of figures, where you do the sections and the pages that you could find the figures. And also list of tables, that should also be a page on its own that you list out the title of your tables and the number of page that each table could be traced. So it is all that you've mentioned that constitutes the preliminary page of your research. After the preliminary page, you have the chapter 1. The chapter 1. Remember, in the preliminary page, you have the abstract. Abstract is more like the particular section of your work that captures those important areas of your work. Remember, in the presentation of your work, what you did is important. The method that you use to do that is important. And the specific results that you obtained should also be included in the abstract. I'm not saying discussing your result. I'm saying specific results, like you have something to be maximum or lowest, right? Such should be included in the abstract. And if there is need to recommend, right, after presenting the specific results, you can also include recommendation in the abstract. So it has to be a one-page write-up where vital information about your work is supposed to be captured. Further to that, we have another section which is called Introduction, Chapter 1. Introduction means that you have to introduce your work. And that goes by incorporating the background of study, the background of the area that you are now telling the world. You are presenting your work, right? The background of your work is what is needed in the introduction. That is the first subsection of your introduction, background of study. After background of study, you will have to state the problem statement. What actually was the problem that instigated this your current study? The problem you saw. Maybe you've gone through literatures and you were able to identify some gaps in knowledge. So those gaps would have a kind of problem that your research will solve. So those problems are what we need for you to capture under problem statement. So after the problem statement, you have another subsection under introduction. Remember, we're talking about chapter 1, which is introduction. And that is objectives of study. You should have objectives. Those gaps in knowledge that you were able to discover. How do you get to acquiring information that could help in further analysis and conclusion to enable you unravel the unknown? So those objectives that are relevant to your study should be captured. Look at it as a general view, which is your aim of study. Now you have the aim, which is to accomplish that which you seek to accomplish, right? That which you've observed. The missing link, generally the missing link that you intend to unravel. Then the specific objectives will just be the steps to arriving at that. So you break those specific objectives and include them. And it shouldn't be more than 4. Make it 3 if you like, or maximum 4. And make sure that all that you have stated, you are able to do. Objectives must be reported in your conclusion as done, and you state results that you were able to get for each objective. So that is how to write your conclusion. We are going to conclusion, right? So that is it. After objectives, you have to write the justification of study. Who are the beneficiaries of your study? What impact does your study have on the environment, on the society, on the government? Who must benefit from this, your study? You should be able to tell and include that as appropriate. The other is scope and limitation of study. You carried out a study, right? And there were some limitations. You didn't use all the experimentations, all the techniques, all the approaches. It is time for you to tell us what you did, the extent to which you were able to involve in the research, and to tell the limitations of your study. You were able to use this, but because of lack of facilities, you now improvised and used so and so stuff. So that is a limitation, and the scope should be what extent did you undertake your study, to what boundaries. So those should be stated under the scope and limitation of study. After which you have another section, which is the chapter 2 of your final year project. The chapter 2 of your final year project is usually where you will recognize what other people may have done. It is actually that section that is called literature review. Literature review. So you are going back to books and papers, published papers, to look out for what other people may have done, right? In your own area of interest. Some people may have done one thing or the other to help build knowledge around that aspect. That is why you have textbooks. That is why you have publications. So it is time to go through those that they've done and keep updating them as the research is ongoing. So this section is usually updated. So the more updated your literature review is, the more accolade you will get during the time of your defense. Because when you are referring to recent work, you are actually telling whoever that is assessing you that you are up to date. So I want you to be up to date in the course of your research, and I want you to share in the comment box your opinion about your area of research. Let me know the area of your research, the area that interests you. Share in the comments that area, and I will respond as appropriate. Moving forward, the phenomenon of your study should be captured under literature review. That is where you tell what and what are important in this your study. So those areas that are, those sub areas that are relevant to your study should be properly addressed, should be properly written. You write to unravel more information about those areas. The phenomenon of your study should be understood under the literature review. So you do them bit section by section, subsection by subsection, until you exhaust what you have. Also reserve a subsection for previous studies on that your area, where you can review previous studies, look at their findings, report their findings as appropriate, and discuss them. So getting more literatures, reviewing more literatures relevant to your work will be useful, especially when you are discussing your results, because you have to make reference to the results that were earlier reported and how it varies with your own. You have to tell whether it is an agreement with your own study or your own study disagrees with previous studies, and should be able to give reasons why such was obtained. So that is why you have to go extra mile to review papers, previous studies relevant to your work. So the next session of the format for presenting your final year project is chapter 3, which is materials and methods. In chapter 3, you tell the materials that you used to accomplish your research. In your project, there will be a method and materials that you will procure to help you undertake the study. It is in this section that you let us know those materials and equipment that would enable the successful completion of your work. So that is what the section stands for, to capture materials and methods. You shouldn't be frugal with information. You should give valuable information as to how to reproduce what you have done. So if you did this particular activity or you sun-dried your samples, you should be able to include it in the methods. If you air-dried your sample before proceeding to another process of study, you should be able to include that in your methods. So everything that you did, make sure you capture all that you did and present accordingly. If there are known methods, if what you used are known methods, there wouldn't be any need of repetition. You just refer to the code for that particular method, maybe ASTM so and so, ASTM D30. So if you mention that, it is acceptable instead of going extra mile to talk about them. The next section to consider is chapter 4, results and discussion. This particular section deals with the presentation of your results and also the discussion of your results. So you present the figures and tables of the results that you were able to get as a result of your findings, and discuss the results, comparing your outcome with previous studies that relate to that your area of research. So in discussing your results, it's good to make available what actually was it that you found out and discuss accordingly. Your own findings may be in agreement or disagreement with previous studies. There is no problem with that. What you just need is to write giving reasons for such. If your study is not in line with previous relevant studies, tell us what you think may have been the reason for the disagreement. Is accepted. So just report as you discovered. That is unique. It is what is needed. So remember, in research, you don't really know the outcome, right? It is the available data that you have, its interpretation, that will now tell what is it that you were able to discover. So we have another section which is called chapter 5. Chapter 5 is conclusion and recommendation. If you're undertaking your postgraduate studies, you may want to add contributions to knowledge. But at your level, chapter 5 is limited to conclusion and recommendation. It is in this chapter that you conclude what you have done. Like I said when I was talking about the objectives of study, in this conclusion, you conclude your objectives, right? Whatever you have as objective 1, it is at this section that you can now tell us what the results. Give us concise information about the results that you obtained while doing objective 1. So in objective 2, you also give us results. Objective 3, you conclude the results. You just summarize the results in a paragraph, right? You could use a small sentence or a paragraph to talk about it. It is with that you could conclude your work. So conclusions may just be 5.1, then you use 5.2 to talk about recommendations. While conducting your study, you may have identified areas that you may have needed to go into, but because of want of time or something, you are not able to do that, or because of non-availability of facilities, you are not able to do that. So it is time to recommend that. I hope you understand. So recommending that would help future researchers to refocus their interest, especially those who may want to do a similar thing to broaden the knowledge that you have started, right? They may want to refocus their research using your own recommendation as a basis to continue their own research. So that is why recommendation is important after you have concluded your work. And lastly, we have the references. The reference section allows you to give detailed information about the sources of your information. So you got information from different sources. It is under references that you should be able to give details like the surname and initials of all authors, the title of the paper or the book that you consulted, the year it was published, the DOI, Digital Object Identifier, of the paper that you consulted to complete your work. So it is under that section that you give detailed information about the sources of your information. In FUTO, research final year project is usually presented using the APA method of referencing, the American Psychological Association's method of referencing. So there are so many referencing styles like the Harvard, the Chicago method, the APA, so many of the methods. APA is popular in FUTO. So you are going to use the APA method of referencing in presenting your work. And the next section should be the appendix. Appendix serves as a space where you can dump whatever information you think may be relevant to your work, but you wouldn't want to bring it into the body of your work for want of space, because you wouldn't want everything to be jam-packed into the body of your work. You want to bring that to the appendix. So that is what the appendix serves. And you can make references to the appendix, the tables or the figures that you may want to stress in the body of your work. The next thing we have to do in the next video, I wouldn't want to make this video to be so long. So in the next video, we'll be looking at the referencing style, how to manage references. And if the video is out, you can see that here and click on it to learn about the referencing style and how to use a reference manager to manage your references. I think if you manage your references, you've done a lot of work on your final year project. Thank you for being there. I look forward to seeing the next one. Bye-bye.